and welcome to DFS Coach Talk. It is Sunday, September 27th, 2020. I'm Andrew Hansen, joined once again by Shane Caldwell for our NFL podcast. And this time, Shane, it's the Primetime podcast. Sunday night, Monday night, 2-game slate. And I'm excited about this one because we have some awesome matchups.
Yeah, this NFL, their executives and their marketing experts, they're pretty good at setting up these games. And I mean, this is kind of like NFC championship preview and a potential AFC championship preview here. So, I mean, we got some of these teams are going to probably be Super Bowl favorites. Two great matchups with both, Hall of Fame caliber quarterbacks here and a bunch of stars and huge fan bases here as well. So the NFL just crushed it with this slate, and we're ready to do the same thing here in DFS because there's some awesome plays in here and some great matchups that we can analyze. Even though it's only a 2-game slate, we can really gain an advantage here. So definitely excited about these games. They're going to be fun to watch and really exciting to play DFS with and to be able to stack these games here. It's going to be exciting.
Yeah. And what we're going to do with these 2 games, like we always do with our members, is we're going to build the 2-game slate on both Draftkings and Fanduel. And then we're going to build the showdown lineups for Sunday night and Monday night and give those out to our members. And what we do on Fanduel is we actually give out a full lineup because we can. We do a cash lineup and a GPP lineup. And then on Draftkings, we give out the core plays for each slate. And so we invite you to come in as a member and take advantage of a terrific winning percentage here early in the season. We've been hovering around 75 to 80% on all slates, and we've been crushing the primetime games, the standalone ones. So join us by going to dfscoachtalk.com and pick up whichever membership you want, week, month, year, or the fall special, which takes you through the end of the year. And we'll get you right into our Discord, and we'll give you those lineups about 45 minutes before kickoff. So love to have you join the family. And before we get into these games, Shane, I do want to thank our presenting sponsor, BetUS.com.pa. Got a great promotion for our Coach Talk listeners and members. It's a 125% deposit match on your first deposit. So please take advantage of that. And I do want to mention the BetUS.com.pa lines for these games because it sort of sets the stage for two exciting matchups. In the first game, we've got Green Bay traveling to New Orleans. In New Orleans, that standard 3-point home favorite, over under of 53. And in the second game, very similar. Baltimore, the home favorite of 3.5 against Kansas City, over under 54.5. And these teams have combined to go 7-1 so far on the season. Certainly, all 4 teams have their sights set on the conference championship, and these could be conference championship previews. So let's get after it here with the first one. It's the Sunday night game, Green Bay against New Orleans, 8:20 kickoff. And the big news here is the wide receiver situation. With Green Bay, it looks like Davante Adams is doubtful, and Michael Thomas is out on the other side. So major changes there. We could have a situation with each team missing their top receiver. So assuming Adams and Thomas are out, what are your initial thoughts on game 1?
Yeah, it makes you not like the quarterbacks as much in the Sunday night game compared to the Monday night game because obviously with the talent of the quarterbacks in that game and the fact that their top wide receivers by far, 2 of the best in the game are out. But these quarterbacks still have some great weapons. I like targeting the running backs in this game because both running backs, Aaron Jones and Alvin Kamara, take on a much larger role. They already have a huge role, but they take on a lot more usage and a lot more targets when they're filling in for Davante Adams and Michael Thomas. And those running backs, Alvin Kamara and Aaron Jones, often they'll line up at wide receiver. They'll line up in the slot. I've seen them put Aaron Jones out wide for the Packers. and take those deep shots with them. So they're essentially playing running back and wide receiver, which that's why I love if you can fit both of those guys in the lineup. The problem is they're very expensive, and you're trying to get some of these expensive guys in the Monday night game too. So roster construction might not allow it. But I think that's an optimal strategy to try to get both of those running backs, because even though it's tough matchups on both sides, pretty tough matchups, especially against New Orleans run defense, Aaron Jones is going to be way too involved. So that's why I do like him here. In terms of the quarterbacks, I'd probably like Aaron Rodgers over Drew Brees. Drew Brees just didn't look great, without Michael Thomas in there. And I would tell you that Green Bay has a great secondary, and they have an excellent pass rush. So it's not an ideal spot for Drew Brees here. He's still talented enough to put up some production, but it's just not an ideal spot. And if anything, they're going to run the ball more, as they can run Kamara and Latavius Murray. And that's probably the best way to attack the Green Bay front, in my opinion, especially if you can keep it close or have a lead, which I think they can here. In terms of the weapons here for the Green Bay side, if you want to target someone besides Aaron Jones, in my opinion, I like Allen Lazard. He's going to have, he has good rapport with Aaron Rodgers. You're going to need to find some value on this slate. You got, for this primetime pricing, Allen Lazard, $5,600 on Fanduel and $4,500 on DK. I think it's a great price. When they do run 3 wide receiver sets, Allen Lazard will often be in the slot. He's going to get the best matchup. I don't really like messing with the outside corners a lot for New Orleans. Janoris Jenkins and Marshawn Lattimore are 2 of the best outside corners in the game. They're really highly rated for pass coverage. But I do like attacking the slot for the New Orleans Saints. And Allen Lazard will often line up in the slot against Gardner Johnson. I think it's Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, who's a really low-rated pass coverage slot corner. So you can attack him. So you got a combination here. They're probably going to need to pass the ball. And they're going to need to attack the middle of the field, specifically the slot. And I think Lazard has good rapport with Rodgers, and he's got to help make up for the loss of Davante Adams. So I like Allen Lazard here. I already mentioned I like Aaron Jones. I'm a little bit worried about MVS, Marquez Valdes-Scantling, because he'll be matching up often against Jenkins and Lattimore out there. And also, even though he's been getting open on deep passes, he really has the propensity to want to drop wide open catches, So he is kind of a deep threat. So MVS is a boomer bust GPP play here. He is a big threat, but I don't like the matchup at all against these corners. And then on the New Orleans side, really like the way Traequan Smith looked Monday night game. They were talking about how he's playing the X receiver position, and it's almost like Drew Brees was squinting and pretending he was Michael Thomas for a minute there, even though he's not nearly the player. He was kind of pretending he was Michael Thomas. I've seen him hitting some of those same exact quick slant routes and crossing routes that they hit Michael Thomas on, and he looked really good. And then Traequan Smith is a deep threat here, and he knows this offense. He has way more experience than other guys who have been disappointing, such as Emmanuel Sanders, who doesn't seem to know what's going on out there right now in this offense. So I love Traequan Smith, and his price is way too cheap on DK here.
Yeah, it really is. I want to ask you about that. I mean, with the way that Traequan looked against the Raiders and how comfortable Brees was targeting him, how can he be 4,000 on DraftKings, and Emmanuel Sanders, who looked lost, dropping balls, only getting 3 targets, he's 5,000? That just seems like a misprice.
Yeah, I think if you look at the player history in general and over a larger sample size, in general, Traequan Smith is pretty much a role player that gets minimal catches and targets. So I think the algorithm plays that in. Where Emmanuel Sanders, they might be going back to historical games overall as the player in terms of targets and stats. So that's the only thing I can think of here.
No, it makes sense. But
yeah,
given what's happened so far this season, I mean, it seems like it would be an upset for Sanders to outproduce Smith.
Exactly. And I don't think the pricing algorithm can account for that. I mean, and Traequan Smith is $5,400 on FanDuel, which seems pretty, reasonably made, but $4,000 on DK is probably too cheap. So that's going to make him super high owned though too. But so you better hope he hits. But yeah. And the nice thing is if they run 3 wide receiver sets, Traequan Smith can line up in the slot, and you want him to line up in the slot because he'd be going up against Sullivan, which is the slot corner for Green Bay, who's not really that great. You don't really want him to go up against Jair Alexander or King on the other side. Those are pretty good, solid cover corners on the outside for Green Bay. So again, you want to attack the slot here. That's the common theme, and that's Traequan Smith if he gets some slot, which he will get some snaps in the slot here. So I love that matchup there. Even though he's playing that Michael Thomas role, but Michael Thomas can, he lines up in there as well. But yeah, I think Traequan Smith's a solid play for the value play, him and Lazard here. And then I think you can take a look and go back to Jared Cook, even though he had a disappointing game. Everyone's going to be focused on the other two tight ends out for obvious reasons in the second game, but Jared Cook could potentially outplay one of those guys at a cheaper price here, especially on DK. 4,800 seems way too cheap for him. And again, with Michael Thomas out, someone's got to soak up all those targets there, and he's probably going to have a better matchup. Jared Cook is going against the Green Bay linebackers and safeties are not great at covering tight ends. So you got to like Jared Cook's matchup and his role here, and the fact that he had a disappointing game last week. He's in a big bounce back spot here. So I do like Jared Cook.
Yeah, great breakdown. I'm with you on almost all of that. I do prefer Lazard over MVS. I like Traequan here. I'm definitely going to get Kamara in the lineup. One thing I'll add there is, week 1, Latavius Murray got a bunch of carries, but week 2, it was more the Kamara show. He had 22 touches. Murray only had 5. So that makes me feel a lot more secure about paying that high price tag on Kamara, who on a 2-game slate is almost impossible to fade anyway. But certainly going to have him in there. Cook makes sense as well. With Aaron Jones on the Green Bay side, I think you make a great point about the fact that they're going to use him any way they can if Davante Adams is out, including splitting him out wide, including him in the passing game. But, it is a tough matchup. New Orleans is number 8 against the run so far. So that'll be the tough one for me is, does he fit into the lineup or not? Still working on that. But in terms of, GPPs and getting unique on a 2-game slate, I've got one more I'm going to mention to you, which is really out there because of all the great tight ends on this slate. But if you look at the Green Bay tight end situation, they're going up against New Orleans, and we saw what Darren Waller did on Monday night, right? I mean, he just was unstoppable, and he's in another class than any of these Green Bay tight ends. But the matchup is pretty solid. Adams is out. They've got to throw it to somebody. So could one of these Green Bay tight ends step up? Last week, Robert Tonyan had 2 for 25 and a touchdown. If you get a guy like that at 5% ownership and he gets you 12 to 15 fantasy points, then you can get Jones and Kamara and some studs from game 2. So just want to throw that out there as a real, GPP consideration to try to get unique on the 2-game slate.
Awesome.
All right, great. Before we go to game 2, just want to pause here so you can hear directly from our partners at BetUS with a terrific offer.
Wake up, sports bettors. Sports are in high gear at BetUS.com, so put down the beer and make every sporting event more exciting by putting stakes on the line at BetUS. Earn bragging rights over your friends as you rake in the cash from each week's betting action. But don't settle for any other book. Choose America's favorite sports book with over 25 trusted years in the industry, BetUS. You need a sports book with integrity and longevity, but more importantly, you need a sports book that pays. BetUS has your game with action on football, baseball, basketball, MMA, golf, horse racing, and even esports. No other sportsbook welcomes newcomers like BetUS with their jaw-dropping sign-up bonuses. Sign up now with promo code CoachTalk for 125% sign-up bonus up to $2,000. The best in the biz. Now you have the best book in the business with the best DFS provider in the business, Coach Talk. Create your account to make point spread bets, futures bets, prop bets, entertainment bets, live bets, and more. No other sportsbook is as committed to their members as BetUS. Sign up now and get in on the winning side of the ball.
All right, Shane, let's turn our attention to game 2 now that we've heard about that terrific offer. And it is a terrific matchup, KC against Baltimore. And for those who didn't hear our summer shows where we previewed each team one at a time, why don't you tell folks who you think is going to be the likely Super Bowl winner this year? It's coming out of this matchup, right?
Yeah, I liked Baltimore early in the summer. I still like Baltimore unless they have some kind of crazy injury situation here. I think absolutely dominant defense from front to back, from pretty much all layers of the layers of the defense is absolutely dominant. And I had predicted pretty much that Lamar Jackson would continue to develop as a passing quarterback, which I think he has. He's getting better as a pocket passing quarterback, even though he's obviously super talented. He doesn't have to stay in the pocket. He's developing as that, so they won't be so reliant on his fluky runs with his crazy athleticism. So that way they can protect him, so he can go deep into the playoffs, stay healthy, and also be able to not be so one-dimensional in the playoffs, because you've seen teams like New England Patriots, for example, shut them down, and teams figure out ways to shut them down with them being a little more one-dimensional in just that read option run game in the playoffs. So I feel like with the adjustments of him becoming better as a passer and having more targets and more consistent in the passing game, that will allow them with this elite defense to go all the way to the Super Bowl and win it. And I know that's a tall order, because the other team in this particular game is going to have something to say about that as well, with the Kansas City Chiefs, who also have a solid defense and have plenty of weapons to support this MVP caliber quarterback in Patrick Mahomes. But overall, I like the Baltimore team better. I love the fact they can run the ball, and Lamar Jackson doesn't have to run the ball as much, which will protect him. And Lamar Jackson is an underrated passer, as he's improved every single year in the passing game. And so you can imagine probably who I like in this game here.
Yeah, no doubt. And certainly on paper, the matchup is better for Baltimore here with the early returns, the rushing matchup and the passing matchup. So where do we start here with Baltimore's offense?
Yeah, I really love Marquis Brown in this game. I think this is a blow up spot for him. We've been kind of waiting for him, and he's had some really tough matchups. And I don't think there's anyone in the Kansas City secondary that I'm really afraid of that I think can handle Marquis Brown here. I like the fact that with the game script, with it being high scoring and probably back and forth, that Baltimore is not just going to be able to take the air out of the ball and just run the ball. They're going to have to probably pass still as well, because they're dueling with Mahomes and company. So I like this as a blow-up spot for Marquis Brown. And because he hasn't blown up yet this year, his price is way too cheap. $6,100 on Fanduel and $5,700 on DK is way too cheap. And this guy has Tyreek Hill type upside, except for you're not paying the Tyreek Hill price like on the other side of this game here. So I love Marquis Brown, and there's not a whole lot you can't love about Mark Andrews in this game. Again, it's a game script for a lot of passing. Mark Andrews being the number one receiver, number one target for the Baltimore offense, and he's the number one guy. There's no competition there besides Marquis Brown. And he's in a great matchup against, if he gets on the linebacker Anthony Hitchens for Kansas City. His pass coverage grade is horrible. It's a huge mismatch here. So I don't think no matter what they do, I don't think they can stop Mark Andrews here. And that guy is just awesome. And then, of course, if you love those guys, if you can afford to, pair them with Lamar Jackson. I think Lamar will run a little bit more in this game, because this is kind of a game where they take the gloves off and they pull out all the stops, which means they might let Lamar run a little bit more in this game and encourage him to just let loose, but he's also going to get them in the passing game here as well. Again, much improved passer this year. So I look for them to attack through the air and Lamar to get rushing yards as well. So I think he's by far the best play here. Baltimore's run game is pretty good as well. It's just it's kind of hard to figure out who's going to get the goal line touches. Are they going to put Dobbins in there in certain situations? Is Mark Ingram, is he getting a little bit older and kind of over the hill? Mark Ingram looked the best last week, and he's still pretty cheap, so I can see him getting some usage. And they have a great matchup here, Baltimore's offensive line against Kansas City's front in the pass game. So I think they have a great matchup. It's just, I don't know if I can trust Ingram. I don't know if they're going to decide to play Dobbins more in this matchup or not, So that's kind of my take on that Baltimore side of the ball.
Yeah. In terms of the rushing attack, I haven't been on the Baltimore rushing attack, in season long or these first couple of weeks, trying to see how it sorts out. But Ingram certainly had the majority of the touches last week. So on this 2-game slate, I think I will get some exposure to that backfield. I'll go with Ingram. And, it just makes sense to me. He's only 500 more than Dobbins. If they're going to trust the veteran here early in the season in this big matchup, I'll get a couple shares of Ingram. So let's flip it over to the KC side. I mean, these guys managed to take down the Super Bowl last year. They're very explosive, but this is a very tough matchup. Are there guys over here that you want to get into the mix here and hope this is a bit of a shootout?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're gonna attack these guys, you attack them through the air. I don't think you want to really attack them through the run game that much. Plus, the game script's going to call for an aerial attack. So you got to love Mahomes here. The Baltimore secondary is really good. They're stacked, but they are beatable. It's not that they're completely shut down. They're really good though. But because of the skill players are so in the scheme and Mahomes is so talented, they can actually still attack them through the passing game, which is why this over-under is near 55 here. So Travis Kelce's in a great matchup here. It's just a matter, you can't play all the tight ends. So it's a matter, do you want to try to fit Andrews and Kelce in the same lineup? You're going to be spending a lot of money on those guys. So those are decisions you're going to have to make. Right now, I'm still leaning Mark Andrews over Kelce if I had to choose just one. But I think Kelce's in a smash spot here as well. So that's the difficult decision here. Tyrikill, if you can afford to pay up for him, I think he's worth paying up for. I think he can get break loose. I think if he gets up against Marcus Peters is really good at coverage, but he does tend to give up some of those long balls at some point, and that's kind of Tyreek MO here. So I do like Tyreek. I just don't think I can get to him at 8,100 on Fanduel. On Draftkings, you might be able to get to him at 6,300, though. I think he's a little more reasonable there. Same thing with Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I don't know if I can get to him at $7,600 on Fanduel, being that I think his work will be in the passing game. I think they're going to get him more and more involved in the passing game. I don't know if he's going to be able to do a ton of damage on the ground here, but I can see him getting a ton of work in the passing game. And at $5,600 for Clyde Edwards-Helaire, you got to like him on DraftKings. I think he's going to get a ton of explosive plays in the passing game here. And then you can go to the value guys. Sammy Watkins, I think, is going to play. Sammy Watkins practiced on Saturday. He's only 4,200 on DraftKings and 5,700 on FanDuel. I don't really love the matchup for Sammy Watkins, but he's decent. Here, and he could have a blow up game here, but I don't love it. And then I love Mecole Hardman. I just don't know. You just never know how many snaps the guy's going to get. But if he gets some time in the slot, I like his speed lining up in the slot here. He has a pretty good matchup. They're a little bit weaker in the slot than again the outside cornerbacks here. So Mecole Hardman, he's 3,900 on DK and 5,200 on FanDuel. That's the type of guy you take a shot at here because again, he has that big play upside. He hasn't busted a big play yet, but I think this is the type of game he could bust a big play in. So I do like taking a shot at Mecole Hardman here. It probably makes you a little nervous in cash, a little more of a GPP play. And that's pretty much where I'm looking here for this game. I think a lot of it on the Baltimore side, but you got to definitely sprinkle in some of this Kansas City exposure as well.
Yeah, I'll start with Hardman there and just tie that back to game one. I agree that certainly is a GPP play because on DraftKings at least with Traequan Smith at 4,000, he's only 100 more and certainly going to get more targets, you would think, than Hardman, especially if Sammy Watkins plays. But in terms of the rest of the Chiefs, the pricing is interesting on DraftKings. It kind of makes you want to build multiple lineups because, like you said, Tyreek Hill much cheaper, 6,300. That's a low price tag for his type of ceiling. Edwards-Helaire is pretty solid price too at 5,600. That's tempting, even though it's a tough matchup. And I do want to mention also that it looks like Darrell Williams will be back, so the Chiefs' backfield will be a little bit more crowded. Darrell Williams might take those touches away from Thompson. But yeah, this is going to be a fun one. In general, I'm with you here in terms of favoring the Baltimore guys. But I think it makes sense to get at least one of those skill position players in for the Chiefs, whether it's Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Tyreek Hill, or Kelce. Yeah,
I like your two tight end theory that sometimes you'll play because you could play Kelce and Mark Andrews, or you could go like Mark Andrews and Jared Cook or something like that, or Kelce and Cook. I just like in one of those combinations there. I think is very interesting, and that might set you apart a little bit here in this slate because I think all those tight ends have big blow up potential here, maybe even more than some of the wide receivers.
Yeah, that's why it's going to be fun just to watch these two games with all these skill position players. It's going to be terrific. So
definitely.
Yeah, well, we thank you all for tuning in here. Again, with DFS Coach Talk, we're doing 3 NFL podcasts a week. We do the main slate preview on Thursday, where we go game by game. We do a show late Saturday night, early Sunday morning, where we go position by position for the Sunday main slate. And then we do this show previewing the 2 primetime games, Sunday and Monday. So on YouTube, please hit that like button. This is a podcast in front of the paywall. And then click that subscribe button so you know right when our podcasts go up. And then if you want to go ahead and get our lineups, like I said, just jump in as a member. Go to dfscoachtalk.com. We'll get you into our Discord right away, get you those full Fanduel lineups and the core plays on Draftkings. You can follow Shane on Twitter at DETSportsShane. You can follow me at Language Olympic. Our fearless leader, the coach, is at JOESARVADI. And you can follow all of us at DFS Coach Talk. Our charity of choice here, mambaon3.org, MAMBAONTHREE.org. And want to thank our presenting sponsor here one more time, BetUS. They are the place to go for all of your sports wagering and casino action, betus.com.pa. Shane, any final thoughts here on the primetime slate?
I can't wait to build the lineup watch these games because we're going to have all kinds of action in these showdowns. You can use some of the information we gave tonight to help build your showdown lineups, as those can be pretty tough to build with the pricing. And then you can play the primetime slate as well. So we're going to have all kinds of action. So not only are these games just awesome to watch by themselves, but then you add the DFS element into it and the superstars in the prime time here. It's going to be awesome. So yeah, this is going to be a great way to cap off week 3 of the NFL here. So yeah, can't be much more excited about it. I think we're looking forward to it, definitely.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up one more time too. That we're going to give out the showdown lineups as well. So the 2-game slate, and then we'll zero in on each showdown slate and build lineups there as well. And just trying to help you all build winners. So we appreciate you tuning in. Thank you for your support. Feel free to reach out to us with questions or comments. We'd love to interact with you. And again, sure hope you'll tune in again next time as we look to crush it in DFS.